All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, as we are set to close out the year of 2024 and welcome in the year of 2025, Penn State closed out the year with a bang, and of course, they ended the phenomenal season of the Boise State Broncos in the Fiesta Bowl tonight. Penn State got the 31-14 win. For the most part, some of the aspects of this game, I expected it to be like that because first things first, the final score of this game was not indicative of how close that it was. Okay, I expected Penn State to have to work for this win, and they did. They never trailed in the game, but nonetheless, it wasn't until late in the contest where, if you were the Nittany Lions, you could really feel as if you had this game on easy street. I expected it to be a physical affair. It was, and of course, in knocking off Boise State tonight, Penn State has advanced in the college football playoff as they are now in the semis, and they will await tomorrow night's winner of Notre Dame and Georgia in the Sugar Bowl for a date in about a couple of weeks in the Orange Bowl. But if you're Boise State, you're going to go home tonight and you're going to think about your missed opportunities in this game. You think back to the game's opening drive. The Broncos got the football, moved the ball right down the field, got into Penn State territory, had to settle for a field goal. Jonah Domus missed that field goal, and in the process, it denied Boise State some much needed momentum. Why? Because as soon as Penn State got the football, they marched right down the field on a 9-play, 72-yard drive, which is capped off when quarterback Drew Aller hooked up with his all-world tight end Tyler Warren on an 11-yard pass to give the Nittany Lions the early 7-0 advantage. Penn State kept it going from there when Aller connected with Amari Evans from 38 yards out to make it 14-0, and it looked like Penn State was about to beat the brakes off of Boise State, especially when the Broncos were driving. And Ashton Genty, of all people, fumbled. And Penn State recovered. It looked like the Nittany Lions were about to put the Broncos down by 3 scores. That did not happen because the Boise State defense rose to the occasion. They forced a fumble from Drew Aller. They got the football back. And eventually they got into the end zone midway through the second quarter to make it 14-7. Now the Broncos did go down 17-7 at the half as Ryan Barker connected on a 40-yard field goal for Penn State as time expired. But some people felt like, you know what, this was going to be an opportunity for Penn State to flex their muscles as they got the ball to begin the second half. However, the second half excuse me, so much combining words there, began, okay, in the perfect storm for the Broncos. You stop Penn State on their drive. You get the football back, and then quarterback Maddox Madsen connects with tight end Matt Lauder, who was wide open on a 53-yard pass to make it 17-14. New game at that point. Okay, we saw Penn State immediately respond though. Okay, Drew Aller went to his favorite target, Tyler Warren, once again on a 13-yard pass on the following drive to make it 24-14. Now, again, getting back to the missed opportunities for Boise State, they're going to look back at those in this game because they moved the football in the second half, long drives. And on each of those long drives, they had 0 points to show for it. An interception by quarterback Maddox Madsen, another missed field goal by Jonah Domus. And then, of course, there was a touchdown that was called back due to penalty. And at the end of the day, the Broncos are going to sit back and they're going to look at the penalties that they had in this contest. 13 accepted penalties by Penn State for 90 yards against this Boise State team. They're going to look back at all of that and they're going to simply say, hey, what could have been? The reason why I say this is because Boise was a heavy underdog in this game, but I did give them a chance to win this game. You know, number one, I felt like a lot of people nationally were disrespecting Boise, and they were wrong. Okay, this Broncos team deserved to be in this game. This Broncos team deserved to be in this college football playoff. It was just a matter of Boise was going to have to almost play a perfect game against Penn State. How do you do that? A, you don't shoot yourself in the foot with penalties. B, you can't turn the football over. And C, Ashton Genty was going to have to ball out. It was one of those where I expected it to be a scenario where this Penn State defense was going to gang tackle Ashton Genty, which they did throughout this contest. He did get 100 yards, but he had to work for it. It was 104 yards on 30 carries. Penn State really did not allow him to get off in this game. But the fact that Boise State kept it close, or they were in striking distance, if you will, meant that Ashton Genty, for the most part, could be still be a part of that game plan. Now, if Penn State had gone up 21 to nothing, clearly that changes things. But nonetheless, Genty was there. You knew that Boise State was not going to shy away from giving him the football, but it was just the fact that Penn State simply gang tackled him every place he went tonight in this contest. Again, defensively for Boise State, they were game, but they never had an answer for Tyler Warren. I mean, you're talking about a guy, he's going to be top 15, maybe top 10 in the NFL draft. That is how good that this young man is. He's a matchup nightmare. And of course, Boise State found that out the hard way. You simply don't see a guy like that at his position with that size, with that speed, and that athleticism in the Mountain West Conference. But credit to James Franklin because he had his team ready to play. Because, we've heard the moniker and we know the moniker for many years with James Franklin, as his teams simply do not show up in the big games. Guess what? Penn State won their first round playoff game at home against SMU. They won tonight against Boise State, a ranked opponent, a darn good opponent. And Penn State was ready to play. And defensively, to their credit, they did it for the most part without their best player in one Abdul Carter. But nonetheless, the running game was working for Penn State as this Broncos defense never had an answer for Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen all night long. Penn State as a team ran for more than 200 yards. And at the end of the day, it was all about Penn State's big time playmakers on offense. Drew Aller at quarterback, Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen in the backfield, and of course, Tyler Warren. Penn State's defense sans Abdul Carter. And of course, Abdul Carter was injured in the first half of this game. If you're Penn State, hopefully he is ready to go for the semis because you're going to need him, whether it's going to be Notre Dame or Georgia that you're going to face. But nonetheless, this Penn State team rose to the occasion. And like I said, the key was for Penn State, they had to go out there and slow down Ashton Genty and make somebody else beat them. They intercepted 3 passes from Maddox Maxon tonight. And like I said, it was going to have to be a perfect game from Boise. And that basically, the interceptions that we saw from Maddox Madsen were the type of interceptions that Boise was going to need from Drew Aller if they were going to go out there and win this contest. But at the end of the day, I don't think that this loss, in my opinion, takes away from the phenomenal season that we saw from the Boise State Broncos. You think about this team, you always think about an upper echelon program that unfortunately is not, in a power conference. And I thought, I figured some people probably thought this was going to be a rebuild year for Boise State. Spencer Danielson was an interim head coach midway through last season. He got the job after he helped the Broncos, or led the Broncos rather, to the Mountain West Championship last year. And I think the game that really served notice was the fact that, hey, this team went to Eugene and only lost by 3 points to Oregon. And then from there, we just saw Ashton Genty take off. We just saw this team take off. And they played some good football this year. They barely lost to Oregon. They defeated UNLV twice this season. And again, it was one of those situations tonight where the final score was not indicative of how close this game was. Penn State was simply the better team. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around that. There's no, denying that. The Nittany Lions were the better team. And it showed throughout this contest. Boise State had their opportunities, but like I said before, you had to go out there and play rather, the perfect game. So it's one of those, unfortunately, for Boise State. The naysayers are going to say, see, I told you so. And they're absolutely wrong. And here's why. Because You have those out there that want this college football playoff exclusively for the power conferences. And they're going to sit up there and say, well, why should the group of five get an automatic bid? And Boise State, took the field tonight with the weight of their team, with the weight of their conference, and with the weight of the group of five, because it was important, from that aspect to have a good game. It would be unfortunate if these folks try to eliminate the group of five from this college football playoff, because I truly do believe that they deserve to be there. But nonetheless, for Boise, it's just unfortunate for their sake that they fell short. But again, Spencer Danielson, Boise's head coach, phenomenal head coach, had his team ready to play. But at the end of the day, Penn State Nittany Lions were simply the better team. So now, if you're Penn State, it's on to Miami for the semifinals and the Orange Bowl. And it's going to be interesting to see, because you look at this game tonight, and I said it before. I said Boise State fans were going to show up and show out in this game, and they were there in big numbers. It was the Penn State fans that really weren't there as much. There were some empty seats tonight at the Fiesta Bowl. It's going to be interesting to see if the Penn State crew shows up in a big way to Miami to support this team. I know that there are some folks out there that, are not fans of James Franklin. And for me, all the guy has done is win at Penn State. He just hasn't beaten, the Michigans and Ohio States of the world consistently. And that is all that has kept James Franklin and Penn State out of the four-team college football playoff. Okay, now in the 12-team college football playoff, teams like Penn State get a reprieve, and I think they're showing that right now as they are on to the semifinals. And I think the further that Penn State advances in this tournament, the further it's going to help them. James Franklin already does a solid job of recruiting the Western Pennsylvania region, and of course in Big Ten country as well. And I think this is only going to strengthen that stronghold, if you will. Again, you're looking at it. He has some first round picks on this team. Abdul Carter's a first round pick. Tyler Warren is a first round pick. Nicholas Singleton might not be a first round pick, but he's going to get drafted very early. Drew Aller could have been a first round pick if he decided to come out for April's draft. He's not. He's going back to school for next year. And I guarantee you, barring injury, he will be a first round pick in the draft come 2026. But nonetheless, James Franklin has one of the better programs in the nation. And I think in a game tonight, it truly showed. So you look at this, and without Boise State in play right now, it's just a battle of the big boys the rest of the way at the table. We got the Big Ten already to the semis. The Big Ten is guaranteed two spots in the semifinals because, of course, Ohio State plays Oregon tomorrow. And the rest, it comes down to the SEC or the Big 12 and the Peach Bowl between Texas and Arizona State. And then, of course, Notre Dame, the lone independent, taking on Georgia out of the SEC tomorrow night in the Sugar Bowl. But nonetheless, this was a game. The bottom line, Penn State was a better team, and they stuck to their game plan. They did not allow Ashton Genty to run wild, and that was key for the Nittany Lions in this game. Now they got to get ready for the Orange Bowl. Let's see if Abdul Carter is going to be a go for this team. I'll tell you like this: even though he didn't play in the second half and towards the tail end of the first half for Penn State, it was still a scenario where he still seemed to be in good spirits on the sidelines with his teammates as they went out there and took care of the Broncos. So if you're a Penn State fan, hopefully that is trending in the direction that he will be ready to play in the Orange Bowl. Because guess what? Whether it's going to be Georgia or whether it's going to be Notre Dame, Penn State is definitely going to need him out there. But nonetheless, for the Nittany Lions, they went out there, they took care of their business. They were heavily favored in this contest. They lived up to it, and they got the win. Now, it's one of those for me, okay? I said that of these four quarterfinal games, it would not surprise me to see the lower seed, the team that played in round number one, win their respective game and advance. And of course, if that's going to be the case, it's only going to add more fuel to the fire as far as how the first round buys go. I'll tell you like this: I do think there needs to be some retweaking for the college football playoff. I don't think that the top four conference champions should be guaranteed automatic buys. I think it should be the top four teams, regardless of conference, who are going to get the automatic buys. And that's no disrespect to Boise State, because I'll tell you what, there's a big possibility that of the three games tomorrow that we're going to see, two of the teams that played in round number one are still going to be playing after tomorrow. I truly have that feeling. But nonetheless, strong start for Penn State. They put Boise State in chase mode early on. And I think that changed the tenor of this contest. The fans were there to support the Broncos. Okay. And the Broncos gave it everything that they had. But like I said before, the Nittany Lions were simply the better team, and it showed. But nonetheless, it's on to Miami for Penn State as they look to keep on their quest to be national champions. But, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. And also, as we are winding down the year of 2024, time out to this channel. Now, if you like what you heard and saw in this podcast, please feel free to hit the like button as well as subscribing to this channel. It definitely means a lot. Also, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. And definitely stay tuned to this channel for the coming days, as I'm going to have plenty to talk about as far as the contests go tomorrow in the college football playoff. The last three quarterfinal matchups. Let's see what happens between Texas and Arizona State down in Atlanta. How are things going to work out for Ohio State and Oregon in Pasadena? And then, of course, the nightcap to that phenomenal triple header tomorrow. Notre Dame and Georgia getting it on down in the Sugar Bowl. And of course, the NFL playoffs are right around the corner as well. So definitely stay tuned to this channel, as I have plenty to talk about on that as well. But nonetheless, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. Take care, be well, and a happy 2025 to each and every one of you.